He accidentally entered the forbidden area and gained the ability to devour the wasteland. How will he who would become a monster fulfill his childhood sweetheart's last wish? With the curse of the devil, the bloody adventure of the mysterious continent begins. In an underground cave, a monster is strangled in chains, and our protagonist, Alto, sits near it, devouring the flesh as if there's no tomorrow. Even when he coughs violently and loses what he just ate, Alto remains determined to survive. But how did he end up in this desperate situation? It all started 3 days ago. Alto had fallen into a deep and ancient well. The well was dry, so he landed harshly on solid ground, ending up with a broken leg. He tried crawling, but soon gave up because of the excruciating pain that shot through him with every movement. He couldn't tell how much time had passed, but he had tried many times to climb back up, only to realize there was truly no way out. In his loneliness, he wondered if the village chief and the others even knew about this place, but part of him thought it was better to die down here than to go back and be bullied by Gora and the others. Meanwhile, on the surface, Gora and his lackeys waited impatiently for him. One of them hesitated, questioning whether they should really keep waiting until Alto came out, especially since the area was restricted. Gora, however, blamed Alto for making him wait and planned to kick his head until it cracked open. His minion worried that the village chief and the others might return soon, and it would be bad if they found them here given the area's forbidden status. But Gora paid no attention to his cowardly friend's warning, convinced that the village chief was probably off somewhere with a woman. The thought of rules meant nothing to Gora, who only cared about going inside to be Alto senseless. Stomping on a rock in frustration, he ignored further warnings about the man-eating monster that supposedly lurked in the restricted area. As if to answer their fears, Crimson Raven suddenly took flight, circling above and sending the boys running for their lives. Gore couldn't shake the eerie feeling that perhaps the ancient seal had been broken. Elsewhere, somewhere in the distance, a beautiful girl quietly worried if Alto had been taken by Gore and his friends once again. Inside the ancient well, hunger gnawed at Alto's resolve. His trembling hand brushed against something cold and unfamiliar, sending a shiver up his spine and putting him on edge. As he looked around, his gaze settled on a terrifying sight, a monster lurking in the shadows. On closer inspection, he noticed a vague shadowy figure with a crimson beating heart and chains stretching out, extending to the monster on the ground. Alto is shocked to see the monster and thinks that he is going to die here. However, the monster's voice rings in his head, assuring him that it won't harm him. Alto wonders what it truly is and why it has been trapped in such a place. The monster explains that it was attacked by humans who wrapped it in chains and locked it away in the darkness of this cave. Alto picks up a rock and throws it at the monster. The monster remains completely still, making Alto wonder if it has died after all. 10 days pass by in this silent darkness. Alto has not heard the monster's voice during this time, so he concludes that it must have truly died. Yet in truth, they will likely share the same fate since there is neither food nor water to sustain them. In his heart, he quietly apologizes to May for dying here so helplessly. Memories resurface of the time when he was beaten for being an orphan and how only May had cared for him in his pain. He thinks of all the moments they shared and of the promise they made to always stay together. Yet now it will be him who breaks that promise. This thought alone ignites a desperate determination within him. He cannot die here, not like this. He knows that if he fails to return, Gora and his friends will surely target May next, as those bullies won't allow anyone connected to him to live in peace. Summoning every ounce of strength, Otho starts pulling at the monster's body because no matter what, he has decided to survive. Even if it means devouring something unthinkable, he manages to tear away the thick hide and get to the monster's flesh beneath. He chews at it desperately until a dark energy begins to swirl around him. His body starts mutating, skin stretching to resemble the very monster he is feeding on until he crashes to the ground. The dark energy engulfs him completely. But from this darkness, he emerges as a fully transformed monster. With newfound strength, Alto extends one hand toward the opening of the well and climbs out effortlessly. When he finally makes it out, his body shifts back to his human form, though he can still feel the immense power surging inside him. He wonders if this terrifying change is happening because of what he ate earlier, turning him into a monster himself. He understands at once that he must never let anyone discover this secret, but what he does not know is that a man has already seen him in his monstrous form. The man decides to go back immediately to inform the village chief about what he witnessed. As Alto's body stirs with this mysterious power, it suddenly engulfs a butterfly. Before he can grasp what is happening, wings emerge from his back, lifting him into the air. Of course, he has no idea how to control them, and he ends up crashing hard into a tree and down to the ground. Hundreds of years ago, humans and monsters lived together in conflict. Then a person with special abilities appeared and disrupted the balance. Humans eliminated many monsters and drove them outside the human territories. Powerful monsters called Maguri were sealed away. A secret organization known as Kago no Kumi sealed one of these powerful Maguri in the world. This organization had legendary warriors who could take on thousands, but they too hid within society, and humanity gained hundreds of years of peace. However, the monsters never truly disappeared. In Moreo's village, Maya is worried about Alto because it has been many days since he disappeared. She asks an old man to help find him, but he says they cannot do anything about it. Mi leaves the building in distress, yet Alto appears out of nowhere, making her so happy that she runs into his arms. Alto consoles her and presents a rabbit as a gift since it is easy for him to catch wild animals now. However, a trap triggers beneath him. May tries to warn him, but it is too late and he gets caught. Of course, the trap is set by Gora, who appears to harass Alto again. Gora comments that Alto is brave to come all the way here to see a girl, and he orders him to rub his head on the ground and beg for forgiveness. May asks them to let Alto go, but Gora does not want her to take his side. Instead, he wants May to come to him. Seeing Goro harassing his girl, Alto becomes so angry that he transforms. He did not want anyone to know, but he couldn't forgive Goro. Goro's minions run away in terror before Goro can understand what is happening. Alto grabs him by the neck and throws him onto the ground. Goro begs for forgiveness, yet Alto cannot forget everything that this person has done to him. However, May tells him to stop, making him turn to her and release Gora. Gora instantly runs away to save his life. Alto tries to explain to me that he just wants to always be with her, but she refuses. Now Alto is in a predicament because he is still Alto on the inside, not a monster. So he wonders why she is rejecting him. The villagers approach Alto with their weapons drawn. They even restrained Mai so she can't help him. The village head tells Alto to stay still. They do not know what happened to him, but they can't let him live now that he has become a monster. They demand that he repent for his sins. Alto wants to laugh at their hypocrisy. He wonders if they wish to imprison him like the monster in the well. This question makes them realize that he entered the restricted area. They reveal that the creature is a powerful monster, a Maguri named Kamiki. They want to imprison Alto because this is the purpose of their village, their role as the Kago no Kumi. They cannot allow monsters to roam freely in the monster world again. Alto reminds them that he was bullied by Gora and the others simply because he was an orphan. Yet none of the adults ever stepped in to help him, and now he has turned into a monster. He has done nothing to deserve being imprisoned. Seeing that he cannot reason with them, the village chief orders the guards to capture Alto. He announces that Alto has become a monster and commands them to draw the sealing sword. However, before they can act, monsters appear in the area and start attacking them. The villagers recognize that these minions only emerge when a Majir is resurrected, and the only one behind this is the 8th Majir, Kamiki. Now they firmly believe that Alto truly is a Majir. Yet Alto begins fighting the monsters. He wants everyone to see that he is not one of them. He is determined to return to his former self and come back to Mai. May witnesses that the monsters have been slashed down. She looks around desperately to see who did this, but a monster appears behind her. Fortunately, Alto eliminates the monster just in time, saving her. He only wishes for her to believe in him. An old man observes the scene and realizes that Alto is protecting them. He wonders if Alto still retains some sense of reason even after turning into a Majir, but the village chief strikes him to snap him out of his thoughts. The chief urges the old man to fight and orders him to evacuate the villagers. The old man takes half the guards to follow his orders, while the rest remain with the village chief to fend off the monsters. Alto asks Mai to go with him, but she hesitates because of everyone else around them. This makes Alto pause and ponder something. The monsters begin multiplying rapidly. The village chief and the village guards decide to hold their ground until the villagers can escape. Yet the monsters prove far too strong for them to handle, and they start losing their men. The chief orders the others to stop the monster, but the creature extends its tentacles toward him now. The village chief slashes the tentacle, but another one emerges behind him and pierces through his body. The guards want to rush to his aid, but the monsters are overwhelming in number. Just when they believe it is all over, Alto leaps into the sky and with a single powerful blow strikes down the creature. The monster crashes to the ground as Alto stands beneath the falling bloody rain. The village chief is saved, and May, along with the other villagers, is left in awe of Alto's deeds. The village chief feels a change of heart and wishes to accept Alto no matter what he has now become since he has protected the village. Yet Alto makes it clear that he only wanted to protect Mai, urging them not to misunderstand his actions. The old man quickly orders everyone to retreat. Alto asks Mai to remain by his side while the others hurry to escape from the danger that still lingers in the area. In the chaos, a child stumbles over a rock and falls to the ground. Mai rushes forward to help the child, but at that moment, a monster appears and launches an attack against her. Alto watches in horror as Mia struck and collapses limply to the earth. Enraged beyond measure, Alta destroys the monster in a fury and rushes desperately to Mia's side. He wants to tend to her wound, but she softly tells him it is useless. With fading strength, she apologizes for not being able to truly accept him earlier. Her final words confess that she can't stay by his side anymore. Alto screams in agony, consumed by pain, and loses all control over his powers. The guards hesitate, unable to decide whether to restrain him, knowing that he saved them only moments before. Yet as Alto's rage surges, he turns towards them and seizes one guard by the neck. He is just about to take the guard's life when suddenly a calm voice calls out to him. The village chief reminds Alto that Mai would not have wanted this. Alto listens to him and drops the guard to the ground. The village chief explains that the reason they tried to capture him was for the sake of the village. He has seen firsthand how terrifying monsters can be, and they did not believe that Alto still had any reason left within him. Alto remains silent, but gently picks up May, apologizing for not being able to protect her. He reassures the villagers that they need not worry as he is not seeking revenge. However, the village chief insists that it would be dangerous to leave without understanding everything. He begins explaining that all monsters are born from the progenitor. The next to be born were the sealed Magir, entities of immense power. Magir have the ability to summon minions, and their active periods coincide with the rise of heroes. In the past, heroes worked together to defeat and seal many of these evil beings. Of the 16 Magir sealed by the Kago no, the 8th-ranked Magir, Kamiki, had the ability to absorb the power of those it consumed. Their ancestors could not defeat Kamikli, so they sealed it in a well, and the bloodline of the Kago no Kumi has guarded it ever since. Hundreds of years passed, the population grew, and a settlement formed, eventually becoming the present-day Moru's village. The village chief claims that though he could seal Alto if he risked his life, he has seen who Alto truly is. He promises that he won't allow the villagers to speak of this, but warns Alto that there are similar villages and organizations outside, some of which may resort to even harsher measures than they have. Alto thanks the village chief for his advice, but he plans to live as a human and keep the promise he made to Mai. At this, the village chief reveals that there is a way for Alto to return to being human. After burying Mai, Alto speaks to her, telling her that he has been bullied by Gora since he was young. But no matter how difficult it was, he never admitted defeat and always wanted to live looking forward just as she had wished. Now even though his body is that of a monster, he is still searching for a way to return to being human. The village chief had told him that according to ancient books passed down through the generations in their village, there is someone who knows how to turn a person who has become a monster back into a human. The specific details have been lost to time, but other organizations might still have records of it. There is, however, a settlement in the southeast known as Kinokyum, who may have some clues about the process. The village chief warns Alto to never reveal his true identity if he involves himself with them. Elsewhere, a team is battling a monster. The vice captain holds the creature at bay with his attacks, while the others charge forward. But the monster retaliates with an ear-piercing shriek, opening a portal to escape. The captain of the team arrives, using her spiritual power to bind the monster, but it still manages to slip into the portal and escape. The team curses as they watch the monster slip away, a foe they've been trying to defeat for so long. Though the monster's abilities aren't particularly impressive, it is a master at escaping. Even the captain's crimson ropes couldn't hold it. However, the captain urges the team not to be so pessimistic. Koku, the monster, has been wounded this time, so it won't show itself for a while. They need to focus on resolving the secondary damage as quickly as possible. The captain instructs them to hunt down the minions as the Crimson Rope senses their presence. He appoints Indu, Shul, and Burga as the captains of the teams for the minion hunting operation. One of his subordinates approaches him, asking what his next move will be. The captain responds that he has something in mind, so he is heading back to Nguyen's castle. At Nguyen's castle, Alto has traveled here after hearing that Tyria's squad, a prominent force within Ki no Kumi, is recruiting new members. The city is on a completely different level compared to his village. Alto overhears people talking, and he learns that it's all thanks to Tyria's squad that they can walk freely through the city without fear. However, a long-haired boy comments that it's only natural to protect the weak. At his friend's protest, the boy admits that he also respects Tyrius, the captain of Ki no Kumi, who is said to be the strongest. Alta needs more information, so he stays around here more. He learns that Captain Tyrius is usually calm and gentle, but shows no mercy when it comes to monsters. He uses a secret technique called the Crimson Rope to capture even the most well-disguised monsters. Upon hearing this, Alta begins to wonder if Tyrius might be able to see through his fake identity. True to his reputation as a bully magnet, Alta was soon stopped by a thug who shoves him to the ground for being a country bumpkin. The other boys tell the bully to cut it out, but the bully retorts, telling them to mind their own business. Hungry and annoyed, Alto runs off while the bully is distracted, telling the others off. The long-haired boy watches, thinking Alto should have fought back, but his friend urges him to hurry as he is getting hungry too. Driven by hunger, Alto eventually ends up in a creepy alley. His hunger is starting to affect his control over his monster form, and he urges himself to calm down before he transforms. As he moves further into the alley, he comes across a guy captured by a monster. The guy begs for help, and Alto looks up to see the monster approaching him. Without hesitation, Alto leaps into action, kicks the monster away, and saves the man. He checks on him, but finds that he is already unconscious. Alto breathes a sigh of relief, thankful that no one witnessed his transformation. However, he grows suspicious of the fact that there is a monster in the middle of the city. There is a strange smell in the air that seems to heighten his hunger, and his hands instinctively move toward the unconscious man despite his inner struggle to stop himself. Meanwhile, a child approaches Captain Tyrius and informs him about the strange smoke in the alley. The captain tells the child to step back as it could be dangerous. The child runs off, but asks if it is part of a mission. Tyrius confirms that it is a top-secret mission and asks for the child's cooperation. Tyrius covers his nose with a piece of cloth and proceeds toward the smoky area. Alto is later found lying in a furnished room while 3 strangers take care of him. As soon as he wakes up, the oldest of the boys leaves to fetch Mina, while the woman asks him how he is feeling. Alto responds that he feels a bit dizzy. The older boy returns with Mina and informs her that Alto has woken up. Mina grabs his hand to check on his condition, but Alto, still confused, demands an explanation. Mina agrees to tell him, explaining that his memory is hazy due to the spores. Mina explains that right after Alto helped the boy, he collapsed due to the poisonous spores. It was Captain Tyrius who found him and brought him here. The other woman informs Alto that the others who were affected by the spores have regained consciousness, and he was the last one to wake up. They're all relieved that he has finally come to. Now that the situation has been explained, Mina begins her examination. There are no issues with his pupils, no abnormalities in his pulse, and his breathing seems fine as well. She removes the covers to examine him further, but Alto stops her. Mina assures him that she just wants to help, but she respects his wishes. Captain Tyrius enters the room relieved to see that Alto has woken up. He tells Mina to leave them alone as he wants to ask Alto something. Alto watches Captain Tyrius as the others leave. Tyrius takes a seat, assuring Alto not to be so nervous. Alto, still on edge, asks what Tyrius wants to know, concerned that the captain might discover his monstrous form. Tyrius asks if Alto saw anything at the scene. When Alto replies that he didn't, Tyrius urges him to take his time to remember. The captain explains that the one causing trouble isn't much of a monster, and it only exists in the south. It shouldn't be here in the castle, which means it must have been summoned by someone. Alto is surprised to hear about the monster summoning, but he's relieved that Tyrius didn't see his other form. Captain Tyrius asks again if Alto saw something, but Alto insists that all he saw was the child who was attacked. Just then, they hear a loud sound. Captain Tyrius explains that the squad selection test is about to begin, and that he'll be leaving now. Alto perks up at the mention of the selection test, but Tyrius advises him to reconsider. Alto, curious, asks why, and the captain explains that he doesn't believe Alto is suited for it. Tyrius knows Alto is from Moro's village and mentions the God Eater, a relatively weak demon spirit that could only be sealed by his predecessors. Alto notes that the captain doesn't know that the God Eater is dead. Tyrion commends Alto's bravery for saving the child at the risk of his own life, but he believes that people like him tend to die young. He suggests that Alto return to his hometown, but Alto knows that there is no place for him there. Determined, he insists on joining one of the squads in hopes of returning to his former self. The selection venue is crowded, but Alto makes it just in time. He hears rumors that more members are being selected than usual this year. Alto bumps into someone and apologizes, but the girl remains indifferent. Tyrius introduces himself as the squad leader of the penal group and explains the rules for the selection test. It's very simple. Once they are down to 200 participants, everyone will pass. He sparks a flare to signal the star of the test. Chaos erupts as the crowd begins to beat each other without regard. Alto quickly moves away from the dangerous group. A ruffian and his friends approach the girl, asking her to join their group and claiming that they can protect her. The girl, unfazed, tells them she doesn't need protection from someone weaker than herself. With that, she pulls out her weapon and easily beats them up. The long-haired guy comments that the selection is turning out rough, but his friend reminds him that he too needs to take part in the test to pass. Someone from the crowd points at the long-haired guy, calling him a little guy. The comment provokes him, but his friend quickly covers his ears. Aware that little is a forbidden word around him, the long-haired guy takes out his weapon and starts showering arrows at those who mocked him. A Zarban-looking man approaches Alto, mocking him for not knowing his place. The man still wants to fight Alto, even though Alto tells the hulking brute that he doesn't wish to fight. When the man charges, Alto concludes that he's the type who refuses to listen. It takes just a single kick to knock the guy out cold in front of his startled minions. Alto then tells the minions to come at him all at once to save time. However, the boys hesitate, clearly unwilling to engage right now. One of them points behind Alto, where a towering bald man stands with massive chains wrapped around his wrist like bracelets. Alto asks if he's going to fight him next, but the bald man simply scratches his head and says he's rooting for him instead. The long-haired guy watches and comments that Alto is really strong and he'd like him on their team. His friend quickly protests, reminding him not to act so high and mighty after getting beaten up earlier. Alto feels a surge of confidence knowing that even in his current condition, he's still stronger than the average person. The selection test finally ends after several intense hours. Captain Tyrius steps forward and welcomes the remaining participants into his troop. Alto thinks to himself that he got in relatively easily despite the village chief telling him that the penal group is known for being a harsh organization. The girl remains silent, but the long-haired guy also admits that the test felt too simple. His friend once again teases him, telling him not to act proud after being beaten. Captain Tyrius instructs everyone to form groups of 10, explaining that they will live together as a team and fight against demon spirits. However, he warns that the teens' combined strength will directly affect their survival. He bluntly tells those who doubt their ability to leave now as he only seeks strong individuals. Alto silently admires how Tyrius doesn't sugarcoat his words. The long-haired guy then extends his hand toward Alto, introducing himself as Karis and inviting him to join their team. Alto observes that the people gathered behind Karis appear quite skilled, suggesting that Karis himself isn't an ordinary person. This raises the risk that his true identity could be discovered. Still, Alto sees it as a high-risk, high-reward opportunity since teaming up with Karis might be the quickest path to pass. Finally, Alto accepts and shakes his hand, joining the team. With their team complete, Karis excitedly tries to name them, coming up with ridiculous suggestions like Crazy Gang, Unbeatable in Space, and the Strongest Team. But he's interrupted by Mina, who steps forward and announces that she'll be their supervisor. She offers to guide them to the dormitory while explaining some basics about the organization. As they walk, Mina explains that their base, Materia Squad, is stationed in Nyohin's castle. In addition to protecting the castle itself, they also defend the 5 surrounding castles. Naturally, the team will be dispatched to hunt monsters and seal demon spirits. Someone confidently asks when they'll get assigned to a mission, thinking they're strong enough already. But Mina advises caution, explaining that while the penal group values military power, Captain Tyrius and she value the ability to survive above all else. With that, she leads them to the dormitory and takes her leave. Alto quietly notes that Mina's words seem to carry a hidden meaning. The others agree, sharing the same uneasy feeling, and one girl admits she senses the selection isn't truly over yet. There's a nagging suspicion that this dormitory might be a trap. The others listen seriously when she voices her concern, but Alta reminds them that they must keep moving forward no matter what. A few minutes later, the strongest girl in the team confirms that there's nothing unusual on the second floor. Alta reports that he checked the garden in the first floor and found no abnormalities. Karis also used a magical tool to scan the place, so they can't be mistaken. They start to wonder if they're simply overthinking things, but Alto insists that Mina is thoughtful, and there must be a reason behind her words. When the girl asks what they should do next, they agree that for now, they can only wait patiently until the time comes. At Newing's castle, Mina quietly shares her opinion that it feels harsh to send monsters after students, especially since most of them have never even encountered a real monster before. However, Tyrius argues that it is still better than letting them face real monsters outside and risk losing their lives for good. Mina warns him about loosening the selection standards and gathering more people, pointing out that he is going against the higher-ups' intentions. But Tyrion believes it is irrelevant at this moment and assures her that he will take full responsibility for whatever happens. His magic tool activates, surrounding the entire castle with a barrier while the students remain inside. Yet before the barrier fully closes, someone manages to infiltrate the castle unnoticed. The infiltrator plans to give the students something far more real than mere illusions, deciding to take matters into his own hands. Meanwhile, Alto rests in a small house with Mai sitting right beside him. In his sleep, Alto grunts and stirs, prompting Mai to scold the old man for sending Alto to such a dangerous place just to gather herbs. After some time, Alto finally wakes up, and Mai fusses over him, explaining that he has been asleep for 3 whole days after falling off a cliff. Alto quietly remarks that Mai is supposed to be dead, but Mai insists it must be because of his head injury. She wants to go and call the doctor, but Alto stops her. Once Mai finishes explaining, Alto learns that this old man took both him and Mayan. The old man, feeling slightly dejected, comments that Alto has forgotten about him despite them having lived together as a family for over 10 years. Mai thinks it's all because of Alto's head injury, but Alto knows deep down that Mai is dead. He remembers that he turned into a monster and ended up joining the penal group. He can even sense that he still has the power to transform into a monster. To help him clear his mind, Mai decides to take him outside for a walk. Watching them leave together, the old man reflects that he must be getting in the way. Although he feels happy for their closeness and growth, it still leaves him with complicated feelings. As they stroll through the village, Mai talks about their past, how Alto once climbed a tree and fell, how she tripped into a hole on a rainy day, and Alto quickly filled it in for her. She also reminds him of how the old man used to take them both for walks and how Alto would always get frustrated by it. Yet despite her stories, Alto quietly wonders if this entire situation might be part of the selection process. It feels so convincingly crafted that even his personal memories are mixed into it seamlessly. During their walk, they come across Gora, who is asking a child for his toy. Alto still finds Gora unpleasant, but when he realizes Gora is only asking so he can fix the toy, Alto sarcastically wonders if Gora must have also hit his head. But Mai gently insists that Gora has always been a kind person. Alto starts to notice that everything around him feels strangely off as Mai explains that everyone here is treated equally, and they get delicious food every day. Suddenly, strange figures begin emerging from gooey material, and Alto was forced to sit on an ornate chair. A feast appears before him, covered in fine dishes and drinks. But Alto remembers that their real village was poor, and they were never served such food or alcohol. He also notices that everyone is now wearing luxurious clothes that they never owned before. The eerie figures gather around Alto, seeing that he isn't smiling, and start questioning why he isn't happy. Slowly, Alto begins to fall under their spell, and despite the unsettling feeling, confirms that he is indeed happy. The scene unfolds with dead birds scattered across the ground and monstrous vines spreading throughout the entire area. The girl struggles desperately to free herself from their tightening grip and finally manages to drop to the floor. She finds it increasingly strange, realizing that this is going far beyond what should happen in a mere selection process. Slowly, she understands that this must be a real monster because people are actually dying for real. As she looks around, she spots Alto trapped and unmoving as well. Without hesitation, she draws her blade and slashes at the vines to free him. She kicks him away from the approaching monster and continues to cut the vines, trying urgently to wake him up. Alto's body feels unnaturally stiff, making her fear it might be rigor mortis setting in. So she slaps him across the face to wake him, but it does nothing. A disturbing sound catches her attention, and she turns around to see the monster draining the life force directly from its hostages. The sight becomes even more horrifying as the monster engulfs the victims entirely, transforming them into grotesque monsters under its control. At that moment, Karis appears at the scene and urgently reveals that the monster they're facing is called Mad Yokiwa. He warns the girl that they can't defeat it and need to escape immediately. Yet before they can even attempt to flee, Karis is caught on the spot by the monstrous vines, followed almost immediately by the girl. They both realize in terror that the monster is simply too powerful for them to handle. Elsewhere, Mei pleads with Alto, asking why he refuses to believe in her and why he won't smile at her. She questions whether he has come to dislike her. Dropping her clothes, she insists that if they become one, it will surely make him believe, but Alto shoves her away forcefully, knowing deep down that the real Mei would never act like this. His push breaks her illusion, and the false Mei's demeanor changes. She coldly admits she had planned to give him an easy death, but now she will instead make it painfully cruel. Yet she's left stunned when Alto suddenly appears right before her eyes, telling her that her endless talking is putting him to sleep. In her last words, the monster asks what Alto really is, but he feels no need to explain himself to something like her. Back in the real world, Alto has transformed fully into his monster form. The girl looks over at Kara's in distress as the monster strangles him so violently that blood pours from his orifices. Just before falling unconscious, Karis manages to catch a glimpse of Alto breaking free from the monster's deadly clutches. Alto slashes away the constricting vines and rushes toward the other two to save them. After coughing a bit, Karis looks up to thank Alto for saving their lives, but Alto replies that there's no need for gratitude. The girl shrieks in shock when she sees that Alto has taken on his monstrous form. Karis' reaction is equally dramatic as he complains to himself about landing in another mess right after escaping the last one. However, Alto assures them that he has not fallen so far as to lose control of himself. Both Karis and the girl were stunned to see that Alto still retains his sanity, but Alto remains calm and says he's ready to fight if they want to fight. Reflecting on the moment, Alto realizes that the village chief was right about the outer world being far harsher than he had imagined. He clarifies that he holds no resentment toward them, but he also doesn't wish to die. So if it comes down to it, he'll fight to protect himself. Hearing this, Karis suddenly rushes closer and sticks himself to Alto's leg like a leech, gleefully declaring that Alto is even cooler now. The girl points out dryly that Karis is getting far too excited. Alto then asks if they aren't afraid of him since he is, after all, a monster. The girl replies that Alto has maintained his sanity and helped them, so he's proven himself trustworthy. Karis agrees wholeheartedly, saying he trusts Alto too, which makes Alto quietly wonder if perhaps the village chief was wrong about outsiders. Yet Karis quickly adds that the village chief wasn't entirely wrong. Humans who have been corrupted by power have caused devastating disasters in the past. Alto understands that typically, corrupted humans and magical beings are swiftly eliminated. Karis warns him that it's not something to take lightly. They just happen to see his situation a little differently. Alto sincerely thanks him, but Karis waves it off, saying he actually has a favored ask in return for keeping Alto's secret. Suspicious, Alto asks what he wants, but Karis simply requests that Alto defeat the monster. Alto was surprised by how simple the request sounds, prompting Karis to protest that it's still an important job. Alto then turns to the girl and asks if she has anything she'd like from him. At that moment, the girl finally introduces herself as Reika and tells him she doesn't ask for repayment. Instead, she says she believes Alto deserves to live because he's still clinging to his sanity. However, she adds that if he ever loses control and truly becomes a monster, she will have to eliminate him herself. Alto quietly appreciates her resolve, but Karis notices a tattoo on Reika and points out that she must be from Malice City. Alto admits he's never heard of it, so they explain that Malice City lies at the northernmost edge of the continent. It's notorious for its high crime rate and advanced technology. In Malice City, body modifications are a popular trend. Some people have even replaced everything except their brains. Despite that, Reika explains it doesn't matter to her what form someone takes. Karis comments that she's surprisingly rational and that he'd like to get along with her, but Reika quickly reminds him that they still have a monster to deal with. They watch the monster's movements carefully, and Karis points out that this isn't the location where Magiokiwa was originally sealed. Someone must have summoned it here deliberately. Just as they're about to act, they hear footsteps approaching. A squad of regular members arrives and assures them to head to the eastern side and leave the monster to them. Karas and Alto exchange glances and decide to trust them, turning their backs to the monster and preparing to move on. As they walk away, they casually talk, unaware that the squad members behind them are already struggling against the monster. Loud crashing noises soon catch Alto's attention, making him uneasy, but Karis insists that he's just overthinking things. Their conversation abruptly ends when chaos breaks out and a guard, strangled by monstrous vines, is hurled right over their heads, forcing them to face the reality of the situation. The three quickly realize that the regular squad members have already fallen, their life force drained away completely, and the monster is now going out of control after absorbing far too much vitality. Among the three, Karas is the one who panics the most, urgently warning them that they need to run away immediately. As the monster turns its attention toward them, Karas starts trembling uncontrollably, even as Reika tries to get him to stay focused. Just as the monster is about to attack Karas, Alto steps forward and grabs hold of the vine, slashing apart using only his bare hand. Determined, Alto says that he wants to save any survivors still left. Reika silently joins him in this mission, readying herself to fight. Karas, on the other hand, struggles to understand why they refuse to give up when the situation seems hopeless. But in the end, he wills himself to move forward too, reminding himself that he volunteered to be part of the criminal squad. Meanwhile, on the other side, the monster shrieks loudly, sending a chilling signal that its core is now surging with even greater power. Mina realizes that the situation has turned critical, and they must seal the core to stop it. Without hesitation, begins forming a barrier around it even as she herself is caught by the monster's vines. One of her subordinates protests, reminding her that barriers aren't her specialty, but Mina urgently asks for his help. Summoning her strength, Mina breaks free from the monster's grip and commands the guards to hold it back, even though it's clear they're struggling against its sheer force. The monster launches an attack at one of the guards, but then abruptly halts mid-strike. They quickly conclude that someone must have discovered the monster's core, successfully suppressing its movements from within. On the battlefield, Alto and the others work together seamlessly to keep the monster in check. Karis keeps shouting out the exact directions from which the monster's next attacks will come. His predictions are impressively accurate thanks to the artifact he's using, allowing him to guide others as well. Following his lead, they focus on intercepting and knocking away every strike, managing to suppress the monster's power, at least for the moment. The team praises Mina for her brilliant effort in sealing the monster's core, but deep down, she senses something isn't right. The monster's movements may have stopped, but its power continues to grow, pulsing beneath the surface. Suddenly, the monster becomes active again, violently emitting waves of energy that shake the entire area. A regular squad member watching anxiously thinks that if they can just keep the monster suppressed like this, then surely the captain will step in and finish it off. But in the very next instant, the monster's unleashed energy wave blows the squad member's head away in a single horrifying moment. Reika immediately announces that the seal has failed as the monster looms over them. Alto steps forward without hesitation to brace for the monster's attack, which pierces straight through his body, making both Karas and Reika shout in worry. The pain is overwhelming, yet Alto finally manages to grab hold of the monster up close, ready to fight it head-on. The monster's full-scale rampage begins, making Mina deeply worry about the worsening situation. She instructs the others to hurry and head toward the candidates while she herself will handle the monster. Her subordinates urge her to wait for Captain Tyrius, but Mina insists that they don't have the time to spare. Meanwhile, on the other end, Karis and Reiko call out to Alto in desperation, but he tells them to stay back and instead help by disrupting the monster's energy supply. The monster roars and charges at Alto again, swirling him violently before finally hurling him down to the ground. Yet out of the swirling smoke and dust, Alto emerges once more, moving with blinding speed as he slashes at the monster from multiple angles. However, Karis and Reika know better than to relax as the monster's wounds begin to heal almost immediately, regenerating rapidly thanks to the vast energy it has absorbed. Mina arrives on the scene and urgently instructs Karis and Reika to leave everything to Captain Tyrion's and get to safety. But before she can react further, the monster lunges straight at Mina, ready to crush her. Alto appears just in time to protect her. And though Mina is shocked to see him in his monstrous form, Alto simply tells her he is not an enemy before dashing back into battle. Confused but recognizing there's no other choice, Mina silently decides to trust Alto for now. Alto thrashes the monster relentlessly, striking it again and again while dodging every incoming attack with precision. Karis cheers for Alto's strength, but Mina remains wary, sensing that it's still not over yet. Together, they watch the monster's seemingly defeated body lie still as Alto quietly notes that using so much power has made him feel unbearably hungry. Suddenly, the monster starts to emit a strange green gooey substance that forms into countless tiny heads, each one chanting pitifully that it hurts. Mina analyzes the situation and realizes that the monster has been absorbing humans to gain language abilities and is now starting to split into multiple parts. To alter, however, the monster's scent and its quivering flesh seem dangerously enticing. Recognizing the threat, the monster realizes too late what Alto truly is, a god-eater. In an instant, Alto reaches out and violently snaps when the head's away from the main body. The severed head screams for the rest of its body to escape and cries desperately when Alto gazes at it like a ravenous predator staring at prey. Unable to resist, Alto's monstrous side devours the monster's flesh as it weeps and begs for help that will never come. At last, Captain Tyrius arrives on the battlefield, quickly assessing the chaotic scene and realizing that he is a bit late but still determined to bring it to an end. He launches himself forward with a decisive strike aimed at the monster, but Alto reacts instinctively, deflecting the captain's attack and catching hold of the sword. The moment Alto grips it, however, the sword inflicts excruciating pain upon him, forcing him to retaliate. Channeling his power, Alto shatters the weapon into fragments with a single explosive wave of energy. Finally, Captain Tyrius, his resolve unshaken, calls out for Alto to stand down and unleashes a devastating punch with all his remaining strength that sends him flying. The monster celebrates its narrow escape and quickly uses a technique to flee, but Captain Tyrius binds it in place with his crimson ropes. The monster seems to recognize Tyrius, yet he remains resolute in capturing it. Tightening the crimson ropes, he strangles the creature until it splits into multiple smaller fragments. Each fragment scrambles away, thinking that Tyrius could never guess which one holds the core. Contrary to its expectations, Tyrius seizes the core in a single decisive move and crushes it, causing all the other pieces to disintegrate. With the immediate danger gone, Tyrius turns to the more troublesome matter at hand, Alto and his monstrous form. As Alto growls, Tyrius wonders if there's any way to control him. For now, he uses an artifact to envelope Alto in a protective bubble, forcing him into sleep. The last thing Alto remembers is Captain Tyrius approaching and doing something that made everything fade to black. When he regains awareness, he realizes he's been taken to a medical unit where Mina personally managed his treatment. She applied various medicines, which initially made him suspect she might poison him, but that never turned out to be the case. A few days pass, and his wounds heal enough for him to speak again. In the end, Mina is the only one who consistently oversees his recovery. Karis and Reika come to visit him. Karis is surprised that Alto survived at all, though honestly Alto shares the same surprise. Mina notices the visitors and instructs them to stay with Alto since his reactions remain sluggish from weakness. It goes without saying that both Karis and Reika understand what's expected of them. Meanwhile, Alto quietly ponders why Captain Tyrius let him live despite knowing his true identity and even arranged his treatment afterward. His teammates noticed that Alto is lost in thought and asked Mena if he's truly recovered. Mena reassures them, explaining that she prepared a special medicine to help stabilize him, so there shouldn't be any major problems. Tyrius arrives and asks everyone else to leave them alone for a private talk. Karis hesitates, wanting to stay because he already knows the circumstances, but Mena reminds him to respect the captain's authority since it concerns accountability. Once alone, Captain Tyrius asks if Alto remembers what happened during the incident, noting that demonization typically doesn't affect memory. Alto debates how to respond and simply says he doesn't understand what Tyrius means. Tyrius seems amused by his nerve, but openly admits he knows about Alto's demonization. Alto then asks why he was spared and treated when the key division strictly forbids demons. Tyrius explains his reasoning. First, Alto shielded the candidates from demon spirits, proving he has a sense of duty worth saving. Second, unlike the rigid Senate, Tyrius himself doesn't hate demons as long as they don't harm people. And lastly, Tyrius wants Alto on his side because of his strength. He adds that the organization has become increasingly suspicious lately, and this incident serves as clear evidence. Alto asks if Tyrius will keep quiet about his secret if he becomes his subordinate, but the captain corrects him, saying he doesn't want a mere subordinate. He wants Alto to become his sword. Alto understands that this means being a weapon to hunt demons, a relationship closer to a contract than master and servant. After thinking it over, Alto asks permission to make what might sound like an audacious request. Tyrius grants him the chance, so Alto reveals that he desperately wants to return to being human and seeks help to find a way. Tyrion asks if he's heard of the Land of Knowledge, to which Alto replies he only knows it's where the key division's collected wisdom resides. Tyrion explains that this place holds ancient books, legends, and even forbidden techniques, some rumored to contain methods to turn demons back into humans. Many demons have tried to infiltrate to get these secrets, but were systematically eliminated. From that, Alto reasons there must still be a way to infiltrate, and Tyrius admits there is, but says he will only reveal how based on Alto's contributions. Hunting demons carries serious risks and could mean death. Even so, Alto is resolute because to him, it's the only path left. Tyrius seems surprised to see Alto's determination, but firmly reminds him that if Alto loses all sense and goes out of control during battle, he will have to eliminate him. Alto accepts this condition and finally asks how much work he'll need to do before learning the method to infiltrate the Land of Knowledge. Captain Tyrius advises Altum not to be so hasty since he is still recovering from his injuries. He further explains that the world of knowledge is managed by the old members of the Senate and is not freely accessible at all times. On top of that, the sheer volume of books stored there is enormous, so finding what he needs quickly would be nearly impossible. They must proceed carefully and with patience. Deciding to end the meeting there, Tyrius adds that Mina would scold him if he lingered any longer. He gently advises Alto not to overexert himself. Despite this, Alto remains troubled because too many people saw him transform into a monster. Yet, Tyrius reassures him not to worry, explaining that, unfortunately, those who witnessed it all died in battle. On the second day, Alto attempts to stand and take a step on his own, but his weakened knees give out, and he collapses to the floor. Karis and Reika arrive for a visit, only to be shocked at the sight of him lying on the ground. Concerned, Reika steps closer, asking if she should call Mina, but Karis quickly warns her not to touch Alto. At that very moment, a gentle light envelopes Alto and gathers into a small glowing being resting in his hands. Karis' eyes widen with excitement as he explains that it is a spirit. He elaborates that when powerful spiritual energy accumulates, it can sometimes give birth to spirits. Unlike demonic entities, these pure spirits can become quite helpful as they grow, gaining unique abilities. However, Alto appears far less enthusiastic, believing a noble spirit is too good for someone like him who has fallen into monstrosity. Karis, still thrilled, mentions that the spirit would fetch an enormous price if sold, but even the spirit seems displeased by this idea and quickly leaps out of Alto's hands to escape. Karis panics and chases after it desperately, while Alto and Reika watch the spectacle unfold with blank, unamused expressions. Days later, they undergo grueling training as part of their disciplinary unit. The exercises are intense and punishing, pushing each of them to their limits. Reika performs above average, displaying impressive skill. Alto manages to stay around average, feeling relieved that someone named Karis consistently ranks lowest, sparing him from feeling inferior. Despite the brutality, this shared hardship helps deepen their bond as teammates. Eventually, the awaited day arrives when they face Captain Tyrius for special training, or rather what turns out to be a wooden standee of him. Confused, the three have no idea how to proceed until Mina appears from behind the standee, cheerfully announcing that it's time for special training to worship Captain Tyrius. Their unimpressed faces prompt her to laugh and admit she's only joking. With a more serious tone, Mina opens a large door and congratulates them for being acknowledged. The door reveals the armory of the disciplinary unit, an astonishing place where the very space seems to warp, filled with countless weapons of every shape and form. The three are visibly amazed by the sight, but Mina gently reminds them to listen to her explanation. She explains that the weapons in this armory must be subdued by their users. Whether they accept them depends entirely on one's abilities and affinity. Since many squad members rely on magic and sealing techniques, skilled smiths and talisman masters collaborated to imbue weapons with immense magical power. This fusion of talismans and weaponry created extraordinary artifacts. Even a child could wield these weapons with overwhelming force provided they are compatible. Over time, some weapons have absorbed spiritual power, evolving into entities with their own weapon spirits. Mina emphasizes that every weapon here possesses spiritual power, and a few have reached the rare stage of weapon spirits. She urges En to choose carefully as these weapons will become not just tools, but true partners. The three begin reaching out to make their choices. As Karis extends his hand, an intense light bursts forth and something unexpectedly falls onto his face. Concerned, his friends ask if he's all right, but Mina, the medicine girl, notes her surprise at what he has drawn, a rare and unusual weapon. Its form allows it to function as both a weapon and an everyday item. Most intriguingly, placing an object inside its container may cause it to transform into something remarkable. Karis, delighted, greets his new partner and clings to it excitedly, while Mina encourages Alto and Reika to sharpen their senses and call forth their own weapons. They concentrate deeply as Mina's voice guides them to focus their energies. In response, an array of weapons begins to swirl and shimmer in the space around them, drawn by the call of their chosen wielders, waiting to reveal themselves as the two prepare to take their selections. A weapon descends toward Reika, and she catches it with a surge of spiritual energy flowing through her. She swings it experimentally, sensing how perfectly it fits in her hand and instinctively knowing that it is the most suitable weapon for her. Meanwhile, Alto can also feel that the weapon meant for him is somewhere nearby, waiting to reveal itself. He urges it to come forward quickly, but instead, the weapons around him begin to swirl chaotically in a powerful vortex. Karis, watching closely, feels the incredible spiritual energy radiating from Alto and exclaims in awe, barely managing to dodge a weapon that rushes into the growing spiral. The overwhelming sight reminds Mina of the moment when Captain Tyrius chose his own weapon. Alto reaches out, extending his hand toward a sword that seems to call to him, but the moment he touches it, all the weapons abruptly crash to the ground, falling silent. Confused by what just happened, Alto glances at Mina, who admits that even she has never witnessed something like this before. Determined, Alto gives it another try. This time, the weapons tremble, slowly rising into the air, as if pulled by an invisible force. The small audience watches in anxious anticipation, wondering if it will succeed this time. Suddenly, an immense energy surges from Alto, acting like a magnet and pulling the weapons toward him with overwhelming force. Karis and Reika watch in confusion, but Mina understands what is truly happening. It is the effect of vessel spirit. The truth is within Alto resides the formidable power of the God Eater. When a new spiritual power tries to enter his body, it inevitably clashes with this existing force. Alto's body begins to shudder as the two powers battle for dominance within him. Alarmed, Karis calls out for him, but Mina quickly stops him, explaining that if Alto can overcome this trial, his power will grow stronger than ever before. Inside, the clash rages until the God Eater finally emerges victorious, devouring the spirit completely. Alto regains his senses, and almost immediately, he feels the surge of newfound strength flowing through him. Karis stands amazed, recognizing that something extraordinary has happened. Mina calmly asks how he feels, and Alto replies that he can now sense the God Eater's power more intensely than ever. To test this newfound strength, he shapes a blade with his hand and swings it across the floor, carving a hollow dent that seems strangely alive as though the power itself has taken form. The loud echo of the strike reverberates through the halls, drawing not only the attention of the nearby guards, but also of a hidden trespasser lurking in the shadows. The intruder who had planned to strike while Captain Tyrius was away finds himself entertained by the unexpected display of power from the demonized youth. Back at the castle, Alto and his team handle several smaller monsters, securing them inside a sturdy trunk. Despite their efforts, Karis complains, feeling utterly exhausted after rescuing the injured and cleaning the lab. He grumbles that they've hardly had a moment of rest since choosing their weapons, arguing that they're starting to feel less like squad members and more like Mina's overworked errand boys. Reika reminds Karis that he can't really protest to anyone since Captain Tyrius isn't available at the moment. Alto tries to reason that perhaps there might be some hidden benefit or power increase in doing these extra tasks, but Karis stubbornly refuses to believe that helping with cleaning could ever be part of proper training. Even Alto feels awkward as he suggests it might improve their endurance for stomach-churning situations, yet Karis instantly calls him a traitor for siding with Mina. Adding fuel to Karis' frustration, they overhear other guards proudly talking about how amazing hunting monsters was. The three recognize these guards as fellow recruits who are already out in the field actively hunting while they themselves remain stuck on clean duty. They release a collective sigh of exasperation in perfect unison. Kara is growing more restless, suggests that they ignore Mayna's request and sneak out on their own, but Reika points out that would only lead to trouble. However, Alto agrees that they do need more field experience, so his solution is to approach Mina directly and ask her. Karis cheers him on with hope renewed. Mina doesn't take kindly to being told what to do, but luckily, their timing seems to be in their favor. She gives them permission, instructing them to change into their uniforms and head out immediately. Finally, the three are outside the castle walls riding in a horse cart under the open sky. Alto spots a creature he has never seen before and points it out with curiosity, while Reika records its appearance as Alto describes its features. Without even opening his eyes, Karis informs them that the monster in question is actually just a giant ox, a herbivore, docile and classified as harmless. Both Alto and Reika praise Karis for his unexpected knowledge, but he scolds them sternly. Karis insists they should be making a greater effort to learn more about monsters, since knowing an enemy's traits can be just as vital as fighting them directly. Yet the other two stand by their belief that real experience in the field teaches them far more than books ever could. Alto casually adds that he understands a creature better after eating it, though Reika can't quite tell if he's joking or being entirely serious. Despite the serious conversation, Karis can't help but grumble that the mission itself is painfully dull, and he regrets ever bringing it up to Mayna in the first place. Mayna had told them that this was a special mission, but her unsettling smile had left them uneasy from the start. She tried to reassure them, saying they should be happy because they had earned the squad's seal of approval. Yet even then, they couldn't shake off the lingering doubt. She explained that the task involved transporting something precious and valuable, handing them a long list of supplies. Karis had thought it might turn into a chance to test their combat skills, but so far, it really had turned out to be nothing more than a simple transport mission. What struck them as strange, though, was that Mayna had specifically told them that if someone tried to steal the supplies, they could hand them over to the garrison officer without a fight. And if necessary, destroying the supplies was even acceptable. That was the part that didn't sit well with any of them. Regardless, the journey proceeds smoothly, almost feeling more like a quiet sightseeing trip than a mission. After traveling for some time, they finally arrived at a place called Shakuba, a small town located near Rosanna's castle. Since it would take about another day to reach Rosanna's castle itself, they decide to rest in Shakuba for the day and gather their strength for whatever may come next. Reika stops the cart when they reach Shakuba. At a local inn, the bald man informs his superior that the supplies of water and food from Rosanna's castle have not arrived in days. They only have a small amount of vegetables and dried meat, so the inn has no resources to spare. However, the Afro man tells him that transportation always gets neglected as the festival approaches, so they can only endure it. That is when the three squad members arrive at the inn, but the bald man tells them that they can't take in any guests right now. Alto tells them that they are members of Ki no Kumi, changing the man's attitude 180 degrees. Alto explains that they have received orders to transport supplies to Rosanna's castle, and asks if they can stay for the night at the inn. Outside the inn, the atmosphere turns dark as a mischievous figure watches them. The weather returns to normal after a moment as the bald man takes them to their best room with a view of Rosanna's castle. Once they are left alone, Reika notes that the room is dusty, but Alto says wiping it down a little won't make a difference. Karis calls for their attention to show them the view from the window. Alto comments that it is beautiful, but Karis tells him that the view from the opposite side is even more breathtaking. Alto wants to know more, but Karis feels smug that prior knowledge is important, as he said. Alto immediately shows disinterest, making Karis want to finish his talk. He informs them that a few years ago, a rampaging monster caused a seismic shock, triggering the movement of continental plates. In the northwest region of the continent, these forces caused the land to sink, leading to the emergence of massive fragmented islands. There's even a rumor that an enormous magical beast lifted Rosanna's castle into the sky. And due to the influence of this creature, a unique biome was formed where deserts and glaciers coexist. The coexistence of sand and ice has shaped a distinctive culture around Rosanna's castle. They say that when the beast of Rosanna's shifts its body, spring arrives. During this brief spring, the people of Rosanna's castle hold a grand festival to express their gratitude to the beast of Rosanna's and celebrate the beginning of a new year. After the beast of Rosanna's shifts its body, the landscape of the desert and glaciers rapidly transforms under its power. The former desert turns into a glacier, and the former glacier becomes a desert. The innkeepers are impressed by Karis's knowledge and tell them that the festival just happens to be in 3 days. Karis thinks it is perfect timing since he wishes to see this legendary festival with his own eyes. As the dust breaks, the three fall asleep on and under their beds. However, a flicker of light wakes Alto up from his dreams. He gets up and walks towards the cupboard. The suspicious cupboard makes a sound, making Alto startled. He opens the cupboard to find a scorpion and a spider inside it. Alto cautiously observes the two insects, unaware of the dark shadow looming behind him. The tubing keepers come to knock at the door after hearing a loud bang, but the door and the wall break down to reveal Alto standing in front of a dark, monstrous figure. The dark monster turns to them and scares them away, but Alto feels relieved that they ran because now he can fight without holding back. He attacks the monster using his new weapon, yet the monster easily deflects it. Karas and Reika also arrive the scene after carrying the chaos, but Alto warns them to be careful since the monster is incredibly tough. At Rosanna's castle, the guards have already been eliminated by a group of intruders. Among them stands the invader, calmly licking his blood-stained claws. His subordinate hesitantly asks how they should handle the situation, but the man says Ki no Kumi can deal with it on their own. The subordinate protests that it feels excessive as there was no real need to go this far, but the invader merely pretends that he did nothing at all. Instead, he puts all the blame on the monster standing inside Rosanna's castle. The castle itself has now turned into a place filled with conspiracies, a demonic domain steeped in darkness. The innkeepers run desperately for their lives. One of them trips over a rock and asks the other for help. The other turns back, his eyes widening at the sight of the destruction being wrought by the monster. Terrified, they both make a run for the castle to contact headquarters as quickly as they can. Back at the demolished inn, the monster emerges from the debris, its presence overwhelming. Alto's attacks manage to cut it at the side, but he quickly realizes that the monster's blood is corrosive. He warns his friends to stay back, but Karis asks if Alto can handle it alone. Alto responds confidently that it's no problem at all because he can clearly see the monster's movements. Seizing the moment, he launches an attack fueled by the power of his weapon spirit, feeling its strength surge through him. He believes this is the perfect chance to test the results of his training. Yet despite the force behind his strikes, the dark monster only seems to pout, but Alto refuses to stop his relentless assault. Alto climbs on top of the monster and attacks with such force that the monster peeks out all the energy, debris, and weapons stored inside it. Karas and Reika leap out of the way, but when everything calms down, they both facepalm in unison. Alto is equally dumbfounded when the monster suddenly shrinks into a spirit. The small spirit perks up after spotting Alto and happily jumps into his arms, nestling against him. Alto is confused that the very creature fighting him moments ago is now acting so friendly and affectionate. Karis explains that spirits aren't very intelligent. They imprint like chicks and tend to think of the first thing they see as their parent. In this case, it believes Alto is its parent. Sometimes spirits go on destructive rampages, but despite this, they have the ability to bond and are quite cute in appearance. These beings are known as magical familiars. Alto gently puts the spirit down, thinking that it's too noticeable for a demon like him to walk around with a magical familiar by his side. As he turns his back, Karis suggests keeping it hidden out of sight so it can stay with them. Alto looks conflicted as he glances back at the crying spirit, torn between caution and compassion. The next day, the three set out to complete their mission. Karis resumes his casual sightseeing, but Alto doesn't say anything. Last night, Alto had asked the magical familiar to accompany him, unable to ignore the guilt of leaving it behind. However, he worried that Captain Tyrius and Mina would eventually find out about it. Karis promised to back him up if that time comes, but now Alto isn't sure if he can truly rely on him. The trio finally reaches Rosanna's castle, and Karis is visibly the most excited among them. With so much happening around, he wants to explore and take in the sights, but Alto stops him, reminding him that the mission must come first. Alto explains to the officer that they are from Chi no Kumateria squad, and have received orders to transport medical supplies from Nguyen's castle. The officer instructs his people to verify, so the guards begin inspecting the goods. After checking, the officer confirms that there isn't anything illegal and then asks for the details of their mission. Everything seems fine until his subordinates inform him about a locked box. Alto clarifies that it contains his personal belongings and isn't related to the mission, but the officer insists it must still be checked for security reasons. Karis suggests moving to a quieter place as the current spot is too public, but the officer refuses. Reluctantly, Karis opens the box, but the unaware guard opens it all the way, revealing gold inside. Its gleam draws the attention of everyone nearby. The guards eventually allow the goods to pass, instructing them that their mission will conclude once they deliver the supplies to the garrison. With that, the three continue their journey, remaining on guard since many eyes had seen the gold earlier. Suddenly, a child runs into their path, asking for help. The kid cries for help as he runs desperately from the hooded men chasing after him. He eventually trips and falls hard on the ground, giving the hooded man a chance to strike. Fortunately, Alto arrives just in time, locking the attack before the sword can reach the child. He deflects the assailant and questions why they are targeting a defenseless kid. The hooded men remain silent, glancing around to reassess the situation. They finally launch an attack against Alto, urging him to return to his mission since this matter doesn't concern him. Alto is taken aback, silently wondering how these hooded men know that they're in the middle of a mission. Surrounded completely, Alto keeps the frightened child by his side, who continues to plead for help. The three attackers rush Alto at once, but he easily evades their strikes and counters effectively. As one of them falls, Alto catches sight of an amulet hidden beneath the attacker's cloak. Without warning, the hooded men quickly regroup and decide to retreat after suffering a swift defeat. Curious, Alto asks the child to reveal his identity, while Reika wants to know why those men were after him. Yet before they get an answer, Karis points out that they should treat the boy's injuries first. The kid rejects Karis' offer, angrily slapping his hand away. He insists that if he tells them anything, they too will be targeted and then runs off into the distance. They briefly consider chasing after him, but realize they still have supplies that must be delivered. Besides, those injured hooded men won't be able to chase after the boy immediately. Habrzana's castle garrison site is successfully delivered the supplies without any interference. But as they prepare to leave, an unexpected problem appears before their eyes. A man is being mercilessly beaten by a large bald man demanding answers. The battered man finally says that the castle lord, along with most of the Bizak family, has already been eliminated. The bald man, however, refuses to accept this answer and coldly orders the guards to force the information out of him. This bald man turns out to be the commander of the garrison, a figure completely different from Captain Tyrius. Alto observes that the guards in this garrison wear the same badge as the men in black cloaks. With concern, he quietly asks his friends to step out for a moment. After piecing everything together, the three of them conclude that the garrison itself is searching for the child they had just saved. That means, without realizing it, they have interfered directly in the garrison's operation. Alto can't believe that Ki no Kumi is targeting a mere child. Suddenly, something rustles in the bushes, so Alto goes to check and discovers a black cat hidden among the leaves. Karis asks what the issue is, but Alto simply waves it off and turns away. Nearby, the kid hides low beside the cat. But when he nervously looks up, the three of them are standing there gazing at him with calm, almost smug expressions. They try to reassure the kid that they don't intend to harm him, but there are still a few things they need to ask. They inquire about his background, but the kid looks terrified and desperately begs them to let him go. Just then, they hear the distant voices of garrison guards searching the area for the boy. Panicked, the kid suddenly makes a run for it. Alto catches him by the arm, but the kid pleads with him to let go, insisting that he can't afford to be captured. As the shadows of the guards draw closer, the kid forcefully slaps Alto's hand away and drops his own hand onto the ground. In an instant, a large magic circle spreads beneath their feet. The circle shimmers and transforms into a swirling pond of water that begins to pull them downward. A moment later, the garrison guards reach the spot but find nothing, so they move on, still searching. Alto and his companions drop hard onto a stone floor below. The room slowly lights up, revealing that they've been transported into a vast empty chamber. Ancient pictures and grand portraits line the walls, but none of them recognize the place. Alto picks up the kid like one might lift a stubborn puppy, while Reika steps closer to examine the portraits. One of them bears the title Bizak II, a name that seems vaguely familiar to Karis. He opens his mouth to say something, but the kid speaks first, explaining that the portrait belongs to his father, the former lord of Rosanna's castle. The kid reveals that after his father's death, the rightful title should have passed down to him. Finally, he shares his name, Leo de Bézac, the one who was stripped of his rightful claim to the castle. He goes on to explain that the Bézac family has ruled and protected Rosanna's as its guardians for countless generations. Their family history stretches back over 500 years, standing as steadfast protectors of the land. But then, something horrifying and unimaginable happened. Leo explains that 3 months ago, the movements of the magical beasts became more aggressive, leading to many members of Ki no Kumi being wiped out. After that, a new captain named Urok was appointed. Urok suppressed the beasts through ruthless decisions and harsh tactics, but his personal behavior was nothing short of arrogant and self-serving. He ordered Leo's father to surrender the family's wealth and began diverting the castle's public assets for his own gain. In time, Urok discovered the Bézac family's secret archives, where he uncovered records detailing the use of Rosianus beasts to harness power. Seizing this opportunity, he fabricated crimes, accusing the lord of the castle causing the rise in beast activity, and ultimately took his life. Following that, members of the Bézac family were systematically taken down one by one. Leo was saved and secretly smuggled out by loyal servants, but Urok never stopped hunting him. Alto understands the gravity of the situation but still wonders why Leo came here now. Leo explains that he has come to release the one who was imprisoned here, the legendary beast of Rosanna's. Meanwhile, the innkeepers report back to Urok, telling him about the monster they saw at the inn. Urok questions them further, asking if there was anything else unusual aside from the monster itself. The innkeepers mentioned that the only thing that stood out was the presence of 3 young members of Ki no Kumi from Nyoing's castle who had been staying there. They explained that the first loud noise came from the room those 3 were occupying, and when they rushed to check, there was already a monster inside. A garrison guard then shows them portraits of the 3 individuals, and the innkeepers confirm that these were indeed the people they were talking about. The garrison guard acknowledges that Urok's earlier suggestion to make portraits of everyone entering the castle turned out to be a wise precaution. He also informs Urok that these 3 were the very ones who interfered when their men were pursuing the target. Realizing that the situation has become troublesome, Urok decides to take direct action. He orders his men to capture them immediately and imposes martial law to ensure all 4 are apprehended. Turning to his trusted men, he asks them to accompany him. He stops in front of an old bookshelf, pulls out a single book, and reveals a hidden staircase descending into darkness. As they move downward, Urat quietly comments that it would be disastrous if he were to take that. His subordinate reassures him, explaining that the search bugs have already been released to track any intruders. Back underground, Leo worries aloud that they can't proceed because the bugs are blocking the path ahead. Karis perks up momentarily when he spots what appears to be the beast of Rosanna's, but Leo quickly corrects him, saying that it's merely a magical beast dispatched by Urok to eliminate anyone seeking the real beast of Rosanna's. He then points toward a door, explaining that the true beast of Rosanna's lies sealed behind it. Karis asks what they should do next since defeating the magical beast seems necessary to reach the door. Alto cautions that they can't afford to be reckless as they still don't know the full truth behind the situation. Upon hearing this, Leo's expression shifts. He accuses them of being cruel, unwilling to trust even the desperate plea of a child. Clapping his hands sharply, he draws the attention of the search bugs directly toward them. Karis panics at the sudden danger, but Alto realizes in that instant that they have been cleverly set up. Leo laughs darkly, remarking that they realize too late it was all a trap. Herds of bugs start swarming toward them, prompting Karis to urge Alto to handle the threat. Without hesitation, Alto transforms both his arms into weapons and begins slashing through the incoming bugs, noting grimly that Leo brought them here just to trap them. Leo continues to laugh with a sinister edge, explaining that the master of this place used to be a demon, so the magical beasts now harbor a deep lingering grudge against all demons. Since Alto himself is a demon, he will have an easier time stealing the power of Rosanna's beast. However, Alto refuses to believe it will play out that way. As Karis and Reika prepare to strike back against Leo, the boy swiftly removes his belt and uses it as a whip-like weapon to hurl them both against the stone wall. The force of the blow leaves them badly injured. Leo's expression twists into something cold and cruel as he admits that the body he is using now is nothing more than the vessel he took when Urok eliminated him. He reveals that he once ruled Rosanna's castle for 50 years and fought side by side with Ki no Kumi to keep the magical beasts at bay. Shocked, Alto realizes that Leo is actually the former lord of Rosanna's inhabiting his own son's body. The child's face carries an unsettling pride as he declares that a parent using their own son's body, however they please, is no issue at all. With that, he steps through the heavy back door, leaving them behind as he adds that they should be more worried about what's coming next. Suddenly, a menacing monster emerges, closing in on them with lethal intent. Alto quickly tells the others to move ahead while he stays back to face the creature. He launches an attack, but even his enchanted blade can't pierce the monster's tough hide. After narrowly dodging a crushing blow, Alto decides to lure the beast toward the other side of the hall and make his way to the entrance, hoping for a better chance to fight back. As he moves, expertly evading each attack, he finally reaches the hall's entrance. But there, waiting for him, stand Yurok and his men. They quickly piece together that Leo has likely cornered the demon boy deeper inside. Watching Alto rush toward them, Yurok leaps high into the air, striking out with his whip to bind Alto tightly. Alto crashes to the ground, looking up to see the three men towering over him. The monster closes in from behind, but Alto remains calm. Gathering his resolve, he rises, shifting into his semi-monster form, and strikes back at the approaching beast and ends it with a single attack. Alto questions Yurok, asking if he truly intends to harm someone from his own organization. Yurok remains silent, but his subordinates are convinced that Alto, being a demon, is merely stalling for time to aid Bazak. Amid the tension, Alto can hear the sounds of battle coming from behind the back door, and even Yurok's men realize that they must hurry before it's too late. Alto tells him plainly that his comrades are inside trying to stop Bazak, and he is going to follow them to help. The men quickly turn to Yurok, urging him to stop Alto. Without hesitation, Yurok draws his golden whip, and his subordinates feel confident that Alto's fate is sealed, believing that no enemy has ever escaped once caught by Yurok's whip. Yet to their shock, Alto remains unharmed. Instead, Yurok uses his whip to bind the monster lying defeated on the ground. In that moment, Yurok decides to join Alto, trusting him for the sake of Captain Tyrius. Inside, Karas is already badly injured, while Recap bravely faces Bazak, who has now merged with the beast of Rosanna's. Despite her determination, she struggles to hold her ground against the overwhelming power of the monster. Bazak spits out a stream of poisonous venom aimed at her, but Alto arrives just in time, shielding her from harm and momentarily catching Bazak off guard. Yurok and his men also enter the scene, but Bazak sneers that it is too late, claiming the power of Rosanna's beast is already his to command. Yurok disagrees and draws his sword with quiet resolve. Karas watches in disbelief, amazed by how someone as bulky as Yurok can move so swiftly, while Alto and Reika admire the skill behind his swordsmanship. In a blur of motion, Yurok slices Bazak into clean, precise cuts before landing back on the ground. Calmly, he tells everyone that he made sure only to cut Bazak without harming the beast of Rosanna's. Yet Reika quickly warns that the fight isn't over. Startled, Yurok turns to see Bazak's body begin to regenerate, rising again from the remains of the beast. Karas curses at the sight. Ulrika explains that they had already defeated Bazak once before the others arrived, but it regenerated that time as well. Yurok realizes that Rosanna's castle itself is infused with the monster's magical energy, which Bazak is using to fuel his regeneration. Determined, Yurok decides to keep attacking until Bazak finally runs out of magic power. However, Alto stops him, explaining that Bazak will reach his complete form if he fully absorbs all the magic within the castle. Even now, Bazak is deliberately choosing to fight them instead of fleeing, allowing their attacks to land so he can regenerate and draw in even more power each time. Alto warns that with every regeneration, Bazak becomes stronger and more dangerous. Karas asks urgently what they should do next, and Yurok responds firmly that they must crush both Bazak and his twisted schemes once and for all. Bazak silently observes them, thinking they are being bold and wonders about their plans, but none of them answer him. Yurok then turns to Alto, asking if he has any combat experience. Alto explains that he has fought monsters before, so Yurok asks him to lend his strength in the coming fight. Bazak considers their efforts nothing more than useless resistance, but Yurok dismisses him as ridiculous and launches an even fiercer assault this time, striking with determination. Bazak warns them to stop, insisting that by attacking him, they risk cutting off the magic flowing through Rosanna's castle that sustains 500,000 people. Yet Yurok and Alto pay no attention to his words, focused entirely on weakening him. As they keep up the pressure, they finally sense the monster beginning to slow down, and Yurok, with thinly veiled sarcasm, asks if he is starting to feel unwell. In rage and desperation, Bazak lets out a powerful shout, creating a shockwave that forces everyone to fall back. When the energy settles, only Alta remains standing before him. Deciding he has had enough, Bazak declares that he is done cooperating and attacks Alto head-on. Reika and Karas look on in worry, fearing for Alto's safety, but Alto meets the attack without hesitation. Grabbing the monster's gaping mouth with his bare hands, he tears it apart by brute force, then seizes one end of monster's body and slams it violently against the ground. Bazak stares in disbelief, shocked that such raw power could come from someone so young, while Alto himself admits he is equally surprised by what just happened. In truth, Alto is still trying to understand it. At the moment Bazak bit him, he felt a surge of strength erupt from deep within. As realization dawns, Alto sees this as his opportunity to finish Bazak with a single decisive blow. Recognizing the danger, Bazak counters with his own force, and the two powerful attacks clash midway, locking them in a struggle. Taking advantage of the momentary stalemate, Bazak seizes the chance to slip away and escapes into the shadows. Outside the castle walls, everything appears calm and undisturbed at first, until Bazak erupts violently from beneath the ground, breaking the silence and unleashing chaos and destruction upon the surroundings. Even after seeing the monstrous figure standing before them, the guards still resolve to hold him back. However, Bazak only smirks as the ground beneath their feet begins to quake violently, and in an instant, the monster crushes them like helpless ants. With scornful contempt, Bazak questions whether insects like them can even imagine defeating a god such as himself. Alto, standing firm in front of him, scoffs at the claim of divinity and coldly calls Bazak nothing more than a common thief. The words strike a nerve, and Bazak angrily tells him to stay silent, pointing out that Alto too has stolen the power of a monster. Yet Alto keeps approaching, declaring that precisely because they are the same kind, it must be him who puts an end to Bazak's rampage. Deep inside, Alto believes this is something he has to face alone, knowing that Urok and the others won't be able to arrive in time to help. Determined not to harm the beast itself, Alto extends thread-like energy from his hands to skillfully deflect the monster's fierce attacks and bind it in place. Just then, Urok and the others finally arrive at the chaotic scene, and Alto quickly reports that Bazak has been successfully captured. However, Karas urgently warns him to look back. And when Alto turns, he finds that Bazak is now floating ominously within a powerful glowing red bubble. Blinding energy radiates outward, blocking everyone's vision. And when the debris and dust finally settle, they stand stunned by what they see. Bazak has transformed completely and triumphantly announces that his evolution into a demon god is now complete. As proof of his newfound power, he sends lightning crackling across the ground, shocking humans and throwing the surroundings into chaos. Terrified, everyone runs in panic and distress, but Bazak only laughs at the sight, convinced that those who have pinned all their hopes on the beast of Rosanna's must now see nothing but pure despair. In his eyes, humans remain nothing more than selfish, fragile, and weak creatures. Despite the overwhelming threat before them, Urok and the others still stand bravely in his path. But Urok, recognizing the severity of the situation, worries that they cannot stop Bazak on their own now that the fusion is nearly complete. Thinking quickly, he orders his squad to split into two teams. One to lead the evacuation of civilians and the other to call urgently for reinforcements. Urok instructs everyone else to run while he plans to stay behind and buy precious time. Bazak, with a mocking sneer, scoffs at Urok's resolve to buy them time. In a sudden ruthless motion, he extends his hand and drives it forward, puncturing deep into Urok's shoulder. Bazak attacks Urok relentlessly, claiming that he is no longer even capable of stalling for time. Yet despite the force of the assault, Urok turns his gaze toward the people who are escaping in the distance and allows himself a faint smile. In his mind, he calls Bazak a fool because the power of a demon god is not something that can be so easily obtained. Whoever fed Bazak such nonsense is merely using him for their own ends. Enraged by Urok's defiance, Bazak intensifies the attack. But at that critical moment, Alto intervenes, channeling his energy. Alto strikes to free Urok from Bazak's deadly grip. Urok, still catching his breath, reminds Alto that he should be running to safety. However, Alto asks if it would be acceptable to consume Bazak if he has already fallen completely into darkness. Alto boldly grabs hold of Bazak's hand, all the while deflecting the monster's attacks and begins to chew into it. Bazak realizes with sudden clarity that Alto possesses the terrifying power of God Eater, though he considers it utterly foolish to attempt such a thing against him. Watching from a short distance, Yorick observes in awe, noting that what's unfolding is like a clash between two wild beasts, a merciless battle of devour or be devoured. As he analyzes the pieces of flesh falling to the ground from Bazak's body, Yorick senses that something is terribly wrong. Acting swiftly, he calls out to Alto and forcefully separates him from Bazak. In the next moment, the severed flesh begins to regenerate unnaturally, prompting Yorick to slash at it with his blade, before retreating alongside Alto. Yorick explains that Bazak ultimately failed to complete the fusion, and together they witnessed horrifying faces emerging within Bazak's distorted body, all wailing and crying out desperately for help. The sight is so gruesome that Alto immediately spits out what he had bitten off, struggling to process what he saw. Yorick then tells him that Bazak was never meant to be a vessel capable of absorbing the power of monsters. Alto, still shaken, adds that what they see is the grim fate of a failed fusion between human and demon. While Yorick solemnly remarks that for a human to harbor the power of a demon god is far too audacious, as humans and demons are fundamentally different beings. Bazak, twisted beyond recognition, is no longer just a magical beast that has become a plague threatening all life itself. Resolute, vows to stake his very life to put an end to him, having healed his wounds with the precious elixir. Yorick knows that this may very well become the final battle of his life, yet he is determined to see it through to the end. As promised, Yorick charges forward to confront Bazak directly, while Alto stands back for a moment, questioning how he can possibly help when someone as formidable as Captain Yorick is fighting with death itself in mind. Yorick unleashes his golden whip, binding the monstrous creature tightly before leaping high into the sky to deliver a decisive blow to its skull. Yet just as his attack is about to land, the monster releases a surge of energy and shock waves so immense that they ripple outward, reaching all the way to the people who were escaping, and ends them in a single devastating instant. Karaz barely manages to shield himself and Reika with his weapon, but even his trusted weapon shatters under the force. Even Alto, struggling to keep his balance, is overwhelmed by the shockwave and is thrown backward, crashing to the ground. As Alto pushes himself up, dazed yet determined, he notices something strange. The strings of his power are somehow connected to every living being around them, even to the monster itself. Realizing what this could mean, Alto grabs hold of those energy threads and pulls with all his strength, focusing every bit of willpower he has. The monster, caught in the grip of Alto's power, becomes aware that Alto was draining its energy, but there is nothing it can do to stop it. Slowly, it begins to shrink, its towering form collapsing until it falls helplessly to the ground, reverting back into its beast form. In the days that follow, as the castle is painstakingly rebuilt, people speak among themselves about what they witnessed. They share that after the demon god perished, its scattered power rained down upon them, and those it had eliminated miraculously returned to life. Even the ancient beast of Rosanna survived unharmed. Many among them believe it was Captain Yorick who accomplished this miracle, dismissing the vague memory of another monster that had fought alongside him. While loading supplies onto a cart with Karaz and Reika, Alto watches the people chatting beyond the courtyard, silently reflecting on what truly happened. He recalls how he absorbed all of Bazak's failed fusion power, losing consciousness in the process, and wonders if the sheer overflow of that energy from his body might have been what restored everyone to life. In the end, Alta decides it's better to keep the details of this mission to themselves. Later, Captain Yorick calls Alta aside to personally thank him for saving everyone. For a brief moment, Alta was caught off guard, but responds with a polite, if slightly forced smile. Seizing the moment, Captain Yorick gives him a lecture about the nature of conflicts among monsters. He explains that all things in the world, including monsters, align with the 5 elements: wood, water, fire, earth, and metal. Each monster type is especially vulnerable to another, and understanding this elemental logic could help Alta become even stronger. Alta thanks him sincerely for the advice and takes his leave after exchanging proper farewells. Captain Yorick contemplates silently, reflecting that seeing these young fighters reminds him of his own past. Yet duty still calls, and as his squad requires him to review some reports, Yorick turns away to fulfill his responsibilities. Meanwhile, in a bustling restaurant, the air is filled with talk about the Bazak family's attempt to seize the power of Rosanna's. Some voices wonder aloud whether it was truly the legendary God-Eater who put an end to it, while others dismissed the thought entirely, arguing that the God-Eater should still be sealed away. Among the patrons, Alto and his comrades sit quietly listening when a piece of startling news catches their attention. The Night King has reportedly appeared in Torsten City. At the gates of Torsten's, a group of guards welcome certain officials into the city, yet Alto and his friends are stopped and denied entry. Karis questions the reason behind this, and the in-charge guard informs them that communication with the official members has been cut off, so there is no way they will allow a group of trainees inside. Alto counters by reminding them that the organization has announced a massive bounty. Anyone who slays the monster will be awarded a substantial sum of money. After all, this is the Night King's first appearance in 10 years, and he is already expanding his domain of death. Despite Alto's reasoning, the guard remains stubborn, insisting that he has no intention of aiding them in this mission. Karis warns that this refusal will be reported to the higher-ups, but the guard, growing frustrated, lashes out and attempts to strike Karis. Before the punch can land, however, Alto effortlessly catches the guard's fist, pointing out that since the reward is open competition, it makes no difference whether they are trainees or veterans. The guard staggers back to the ground, his hand trembling, but he still musters the courage to accuse Alto of attacking a fellow ally. Yet with just one cold, unwavering glare from Alto, the guard falters, his resolve shattering, and reluctantly lets them pass. As Alto and his friends walk through, the other guards watch nervously, whispering among themselves that Captain Chayu will surely reprimand them for allowing this group to enter. Despite their concern, the lead guard, his pride still wounded, insists that there is no need to worry about the captain's arrival because in his mind, Alto would be dead long before that happens. Once inside the city, the trio soon comes across a dark pile that upon closer inspection reveals itself to be the ashes of human bones. Karis finds it deeply unsettling since those drained by the Night King's power are not supposed to even leave bones behind. Suddenly, a shadowy figure emerges from the gloom, twisting into a grotesque form before lunging at them with ferocity. Reacting swiftly, uses his weapon to slam the creature into the wall. The monster falls to the ground, crumbles, and disintegrates into black soot. Watching the scene with a grave expression, Karis silently remembers how his own family was erased in the same horrifying manner. Yet despite the weight of memory and sorrow, he remains resolute knowing that moving forward is the only choice left to them. As the trio moves deeper into the city, cutting down monsters that appear along the way, Harris shares his observation that the Night King's influence typically leads humans in blackened husks, but the victims they're encountering now all have grotesquely swollen faces. This unsettling detail suggests that what they're dealing with may not actually be the work of the Night King at all. While continuing onward, they stumble upon a guard sitting slumped on the ground, mumbling to himself in terror. Karis recognizes him as someone who entered the city ahead of them, but Alto stops him from approaching too quickly. Instead, Alto steps forward cautiously and asks the man why he is here. The guard, visibly shaken and pale, explains that everyone in his group is dead. They encountered something so horrifying it wiped them out. It all began when they entered a house containing a massive divine body. The guard insists that he stayed outside and believes that's the only reason he survived. Karis notes quietly that this doesn't seem to fit with anything they know about the Night Order. After a moment of thought, decides to ask the man to act as their guide, hoping to find answers. The man leads them, claiming he'll take them safely through an area already cleared of enemies. Eventually, they arrive before an imposing, ominous door. Without hesitation, Alto walks up and kicks it down in a single powerful strike. Inside the large hall beyond, they're confronted by the sight of an enormous statue-like figure looming in the shadows. Suddenly, the man who brought them there bursts into unsettling laughter. In an instant, Alto reacts, ending the man's life in a heartbeat. Karas and Reika stare at Alto in shock, unable to understand why he eliminated him so suddenly. To prove his point, Alto steps firmly on the man's head, explaining that he had already been brainwashed and that they had just walked into a trap. Their shock deepens when Alto tells them something even more troubling. Within this place, their powers are being suppressed. Alarmed, Reika and Carriage check themselves and confirm that their power has indeed dropped by nearly 50%. As they gather their thoughts, they realize an even more chilling fact. They haven't encountered any true monsters yet. Instead, the monster in this area seems capable of suppressing powers, turning humans into monstrous puppets, and possibly even controlling their minds, though they can't confirm it completely. Despite the uncertainty, they know the organization offered a reward for the defeat of the Night King, and there was an official report claiming his return. Yet none of what they've seen fits that narrative. Concluding that more answers are needed, although suggests they split up. Since he appears to be less affected by the suppression, he decides to remain in the area to investigate for clues, suspecting that there must be a deeper reason they were deliberately led here. He instructs Karis and Reika to find the incoming reinforcements and warn them to guard against being brainwashed. Left alone in the unsettling hall, Alto searches for anything that might explain why this was their destination. The murals etched on the walls striking as bizarre, and the massive divine body in the room looks disturbingly stuffed with something unnatural. As Alto moves cautiously through the room, focused on examining his surroundings, he remains unaware of the most chilling sight of all, the statue's head slowly turning to watch him, its neck stretching and elongating in silent predatory pursuit.
Alright, that's the end of the story. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.